The first angle pair we're going to talk about are supplementary angles. And supplementary angles are two angles that have a sum of 180 degrees, meaning if you add up the two angles, it equals 180 degrees. These angles can be adjacent or non-adjacent. So adjacent means next to, non-adjacent would mean not next to or connected. If the angles are adjacent, they are called a linear pair. Okay, so looking at these examples here, if angle A and angle B are supplementary, that means they have a sum of 180 degrees, meaning if we add them together, so x plus 120 equals 180 degrees. We can then solve for x by subtracting 120. So x equals 60 degrees. Okay, here's an example of a linear pair. So these are supplementary because they form a straight line. This is 180 degrees, but we would also call these a linear pair because these two angles are adjacent. They're right next to each other. So if these two angles are supplementary, that means they have a sum of 180 degrees. So 112 plus x equals 180 degrees. And again, we can solve for x by just subtracting 112 from 180. So that's going to be 68 degrees. So just by looking at these two angles, you should know that these are supplementary because they form a straight line. This one you may not know if they're equal to 180, but if we're saying that they're supplementary, that means that they have a sum of 180 degrees. So these angles you can call either supplementary or a linear pair. Either one is okay. These angles are only supplementary. That's only a linear pair if they are adjacent. All right, so the next angle pair, we're going to do an example here. These are a linear pair. The reason I know that is because they form a straight line and they're two adjacent angles. They're right next to each other. So since these are a linear pair, we know they have a sum of 180 degrees. So it's going to be 2x plus 1 plus x plus 41 equals 180 degrees. Now we're going to solve. So combining like terms, we have 2x and x. That makes 3x. And then we have 1 and 41, which is 42. That equals 180. And now we can solve for x. So I'm going to subtract 42 from both sides. So I have 3x equals 138, and then we're going to divide by 3. So x equals 46. What you could do to check your answer is you can actually go ahead and plug this in to both equations or both expressions. So this is 46 plus 41, which is 87 degrees. And this angle 2 times 46 plus 1 is 93. And these two angles should have a sum of 180 degrees, which they do. So these are a linear pair. Oops, they have a sum of 180 degrees, so we set it up. The first angle plus a second angle equals 180 degrees. All right, the next angle pair we're going to talk about are complementary angles. So complementary angles are two angles that have a sum of 90 degrees. These can either be adjacent or non-adjacent. So they could be next to or attached, or they can be completely separate. So the way that you can remember these is complementary angles form a corner. Okay, so if these two angles are complementary, we know that they have a sum of 90 degrees. So 15 plus x equals 90, and subtract 15. So x equals 75 degrees. Okay, the other way you can do this, you could just do 90 minus 15 and that equals x. You could do that as well. So let's look at an example with a little bit of algebra here. So these two angles are complementary. this symbol right here tells you that they're complementary. It forms a right angle, which means they have a sum of 180 degrees. So to solve, we're going to do 2x plus 1 plus x minus 10 equals 90. And now we're going to solve. So combining like terms, we have 2x and x, which is 3x. We have 1 and negative 10, which is negative 9, equals 90. And then we solve, so I'm going to add 9 to both sides. So I have 3x equals 99, and then divide by 3. So x equals 33. So just like the previous one, what you could do to check your answers, you can actually plug in 33 for x in both cases. So this is 33 minus 10, which is 23 degrees. And then 2 times 33 plus 1, that's 66 plus 1, which is 67. And these two angles right here should add up to 90 degrees, which they do, and that's a good way to check your answer to make sure that you solve for x correctly. All right, so number 3, the last angle pair that we're going to talk about are vertical angles. And vertical angles, definition of vertical angles are opposite angles formed by intersecting lines. So lines that cross or intersecting, it's the angles that are opposite of each other. So vertical angles are congruent, which basically just means equal. So these two angles right here are vertical angles, which means that x just equals 72 degrees. So there's really no math to be shown here since we know that vertical angles are congruent. So looking at a little bit of a harder example, if we have algebraic expressions, we can still use the fact that these are vertical angles. And we know that vertical angles are equal. So to solve, we're going to set them equal to each other. So 5x minus 15 equals 3x plus 7. So now we're going to solve. So I'm going to put my variables on the left-hand side. So I'm going to subtract 3x. So move it to the left-hand side. So I have 2x minus 15 equals 7. Now to solve for x, I'm going to add 15. So I have 2x equals 22. And then divide by 2. So x equals 11. Just like all the previous ones, you can always check your answer by plugging in whatever you got for x in both cases here. So 5 times 11 minus 15. So that's 55 minus 15, which is 40 degrees. And if we plug it in on the other side, we should get 40 degrees as well because vertical angles are congruent. So 3 times 11 plus 7, that's 33 plus 7, which is 40 degrees. So we know we're correct there. All right, now I'm just going to go over a couple of the practice problems. So looking at problem number 15. So these ones are vertical angles because we have intersecting lines here, and they're the angles across from each other, and we know that vertical angles are congruent. So to solve for x, we're going to set it equal to each other. So 3x plus 4 equals 9x minus 11. So now to solve, I'm going to get my variables on one side, so I'm going to move my variables over to the right-hand side. So this is 6x minus 11 equals 4. And now I'm going to add 11. And now to solve for x, I'm just going to divide both sides by 6. So 15 divided by 6 is 2.5. All right, number 17. So these angles are complementary. And I know that because of this right angle right here. So to solve, we're going to add them together and set it equal to 90. So 2x plus 4 plus 4x plus 2 equals 90. And now we're going to solve. So combining like terms, 2x and 4x make 6x. And then I have 4 and 2. And now to solve, subtract 6. So 6x equals 84. And then last step, divide by 6. You get x equals 14. All right, last one, number 19. So this is a linear pair, or we can say that they are supplementary. And we know that supplementaries have a sum of 180 degrees, which means we're going to add them. So x minus 13 plus 3x plus 1 equals 180 degrees. Now we solve. So combining like terms, I have x and 3x, that's 4x. Then I have negative 13 and positive 1, that's minus 12. And then add 12 to both sides. So 4x equals 192. And then divide by 4. So x equals 48.